All right, y'all, we back with another one. Let's check out this
Good grammar
iPad,
and
see what
spelling
this is
are
all about.
important. But if you want to write essays that inspire, messages that forge brighter connections,
Hey, what's up? I'm KBHD here. Okay, finally, a month after it was announced at that September event, the new iPad Air is finally here. And it turns out, if anything out there is actually an iPad Pro killer, it's this. I mean, I've talked at length about how the iPad Pro is my favorite tablet by a mile, right? You've seen the videos. And I've also talked about how other tablets might be better at the iPad Pro at like one thing, like maybe a better overall display or a better speaker setup. But overall, the whole package for best tablet, for me, keeps
Wow, that's a game changer.
iPad Pro. But the
With the
thing is, most people
trackpad?
don't need an iPad Pro, and that thing still starts at $800. But now with all the updates to this 4th gen iPad Air, there's almost no reason for people to go spend that because this thing starts at $599 and it gets pretty much everything most people care about from the iPad Pro. Except one thing. So the new design of the iPad Air matches the iPad Pro in basically every way. The boxy all aluminum shape feels rock solid. It's got these grippable flat sides. The buttons are in the same place. It's nice. It has the smart connector at the back, so you can drop it in a smart folio or even a magic keyboard case, just like an iPad Pro. You wanna know why? Because it is the magic keyboard case for the iPad Pro, and it just fits in the same case because it has the same dimensions. So there's your trackpad, there's your USB-C pass-through, because guess what? iPad Air also now gets USB Type-C. See, Apple? It's okay to put USB-C in products without the Pro in the name. It's good for everybody. The quad speaker setup that surrounds the display also sounds phenomenal for a tablet, and you have basically the exact same bezel thickness all the way around, thin enough to not be a problem and still look good, but thick enough to actually hold the iPad from any angle and not have accidental screen touches. But then one difference about that bezel is inside it you won't find Face ID. There's just a regular 7 megapixel front-facing camera up there, and instead of Face ID, Touch ID is back, and it's built into that power button up top. So kind of like Pixel 5, they've technically gone backwards as far as biometric authentication.
That's pretty cool.
But in this world of masks that we live in, fingerprint reader is just as convenient as Face ID, sometimes more so. Although with an iPad, you use it at home a lot where you're not really out and wearing a mask as much, so maybe the fingerprint reader is just at the same level as Face ID. Either way, not a problem. It was pretty easy and quick to get used to. Basically, the pro tip is register multiple fingerprints. Actually, that's not even a pro tip, that's just common sense, but a lot of people don't do it. But for me, both index fingers work great, so no matter which orientation the iPad is in, the finger I press the power button with also unlocks it for me. So that's great. And Apple's done fingerprint readers well for a while now. This one is also fast and accurate. The only little bit of friction I had personally was I'm so used to iPad Pro that my unlock is typically touch to wake and then swipe up and it reads my face. But of course, I have to remember on this to touch the power button, which is such a minor thing. But also, most people getting iPad Air aren't coming from an iPad Pro, so this is a total non-issue. From the back, iPad Air literally gets the same 12 megapixel primary camera as the iPad Pro, but you'll note it's just a single camera by itself and a mic, no flash, no ultra wide, no LiDAR. But I mean, if you think about it, how often do you need an ultra wide or a LiDAR sensor or even a flash for your tablet photography? I'd say pretty much never, so all of these things missing mean almost nothing to most people. I maintain that the most common use of iPad cameras should be document scanning and FaceTime calls, and these cameras here are more than good enough for that. And then the iPad Air has the new Apple Pencil support. It snaps onto the side of the iPad to charge and pair the same way as the Pro, so that's pretty sweet. And then inside, iPad Air actually has the even newer 5nm A14 Bionic chip instead of the A12Z currently in the Pro. So you can actually expect very similar, sometimes even better benchmark numbers on paper. But the point is, despite its slightly lower 4 gigs of RAM, it's going to perform great. I've had no performance issues, and I don't expect the typical user will run into any performance limits for a long time. So on the surface level, everything iPad Pro does, iPad Air.
All right, so y'all let me know what y'all think. I think it's pretty much like I say with the phone. If y'all watched my last video, it's the same, just different design.